Welcome to Does It Sing with David Goldsmith and Friends, a podcast from Virtual Stage Lab.
Our chers lovers of musicals, it is with deepest pride and greatest pleasure that we welcome you to our humble podcast. And now we invite you to relax, pull up a chair, and ask yourself these three basic questions. Does it sing? Do I care? Why this show? Why now, mon frère? These three questions are the best when you decide, should I go there? Every show is a fight. It takes years to get it right. Is there conflict? Is there tension? Are the stakes too low to mention? First assess your milieu. Is there too much work to do? Will it bring the raison that it needs to bring? Nail down the atmospherics, then we'll craft some lyrics. Should it be? Do we care? Does it sing?
All right, welcome to Does It Sing with David Goldsmith and Friends. We're back with a friend, a colleague, a sister, just one of the lights of my life. You're in for such a treat today. Alexandra Silber, and I'm reading this straight off of the Wikipedia, folks. This is what's up there on the Wikipedia. Is an American actress, singer, writer, and educator. Also, I'm going to add director. She's performed roles on Broadway and London's West End, on television and film, and concert stages. Among other stage roles in London, she created the role of Laura Fairley in The Woman in White, played Huddle in Fiddler on the Roof, and Julie Jordan in Carousel. In New York, she appeared in Hello Again, Masterclass, created the role of Sarah Jane in Arlington, and as Seidel in the Broadway revival of Fiddler on the Roof, 2015, with Danny Burstein. Silber's debut novel, After Anatevka, which I highly recommend, chronicling what happens to the characters of Huddle and Perchik, made famous by the Sholem Aleichem stories of the musical Fiddler on the Roof, and White Hot Grief Parade, which I also highly and deeply recommend. A memoir about losing her father to cancer when she was 18 were both published by Pegasus Books in 2018. I'm going to add from her own website. As a playwright, she has written modern language adaptations of classic Greek tragedy Sophocles' Antigone and Euripides' tragedy Trojan Women, which was given its first fully staged performance in the Hangar Theatre in Ithaca, New York in June of 2015. In 2024, she was commissioned by Dutch Kills Theatre to pen 3 radio plays, Gaia, Shadows of the Past, and Whisper Walk, which all premiered at the Adelaide Fringe Festival to critical acclaim and will premiere in British editions at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in 2025, like right after we finish this podcast. She's basically getting on a plane. She currently lives in New York with her husband, the charming Alec Silver, and their fabulous cat, Tatiana, both of whom I have met. And I will just say, beyond that, what we're going to talk about today is that Alexandra is the book writer of the brand new Alan Jay Lerner Estate approved revival of Brigadoon. And that's a big effing deal. Welcome to the pod, Alexandra Silber. How did I do?
So good. By the way, I was like, David, wrap it up. My back hurts because
I know.
I was hiding under the table.
It was really impressive.
Oh,
body
thank
work
you for
there.
that really, really wonderful intro.
Now, what did I leave out? What did I get wrong?
Oh, I don't know.
No, and what needs to be embellished upon that I did not hit? Because here's the thing about the Wikipedia. They don't come back and they don't come back and update it.
I just feel like, who made it?
I have one too. Someone makes it.
My nieces think I'm cool because I have one.
I think I'm cool because you have one.
Well, no, I mean, I will say this, and this is a little bit of a soapbox I love to get on. Those credits that I feel very blessed to have do not include some of the most incredible regional theater jobs.
Yes.
And those are some of the most important things. And it's where a lot of world premieres happen as well.
Yes.
So
let's do it.
Oh, I mean, you want me to
I
add
I
them?
didn't like I saw I think it was on your website. I think you had Marion Peru on your website.
Yes.
You,
Oh, I played Marion Peru last year in Chicago, directed by basically my wife. I call her my wife, and it's spelled Wyfe.
yes, we've seen.
Katie Spellman, I think just the most wonderful director choreographer up and coming. And I will say Chris Jones has called her the next David Cromer. Couldn't agree more.
Well, there you go.
Um,
And we need a new David Cromer. We really do.
well,
The first was too busy.
the first one's too busy. And
Do too many things.
but also just like I love working on new plays, and so often they're incubated in these wonderful regional spaces. You were there, you were the opening night, you and Brie were my opening night
Oh, yes.
team of Vos by Cristina Pumariega at Two River Theater.
Wonderful play.
And I've done the world premieres of Murder on the Orient Express by Ken Ludwig and Lend Me a Soprano by Ken Ludwig.
Yes.
And Arlington was a world premiere. It's wonderful to be able to actually, like, one of the things as an actor and as a singing actor that is wonderful is it's a very much an interpretive art form, and as you know, as an innate creator, as a lyricist, you hand these works over to the performers who breathe life into them and sometimes bring things that you didn't even know were there, right?
Well, let me ask you this, and we'll just
Yeah.
start here. By the way, we are in studio.
Oh, we are. This
yeah.
is like a new thing for you.
Yeah, you are actually sitting
We used
right.
to wave to the camera because we're filming ourselves for our own.
Oh yeah, you're right across. Let's look in the camera together and wave. Yeah, so we're actually in the same room, which is really amazing. One thing I know as a former actor myself, who became a writer, is I think it's so helpful to have that experience.
Yes.
As immersively as you possibly can, because as I sit behind the keyboard, especially writing lyrics or writing characters or whatever,
Completely.
being able to inhabit them as you sit there and experience the work as you write them it's like no other experience you can have. Brianna will walk in when I'm working and she's like, "What's the matter?" Well, I'm going through this crisis right now with this.
I am this character. Oh, I think they go completely hand in hand. And I guess it's just, there is a different form of creativity from interpretive creation to innate creation, and we need both. And I love participating in both, as you sort of just articulated. But there really is something about participating in the innate creative process through your interpretive contributions the first time it happens, that you actually get to sort of change and contribute to inform what the piece permanently becomes is such an honor. And one other just like quick soapboxy thing I want to say about regional theater
soapbox
is Broadway is, by definition, I think a lot of us view it as almost like going to the Olympics, which of course it should be, right? I think it's an important marker. We hold it as the sort of pinnacle, the West End and Broadway, but Broadway in particular, we hold it as this pinnacle of the best of the best, right? And it's where the culture moves forward. It's where we take the temperature of how society and the art form have shifted over time. It's how we mark the passage of time in the art form. And that is really important. But on a really granular level, it is defined as two things. It is defined as a for-profit commercial theatrical enterprise that takes place in a certain patch of geography defined by how many seats are in the theater. And that's like ostensibly at its granular level what it is. And so much incredible theater that happens at an identical standard of excellence, oftentimes made with the very same people that participate and play in those Broadway spaces, is happening in the regions. And one thing that I will say is Broadway, because it is rooted in geography and rooted in as a money-making enterprise, it is very simply on multiple levels not accessible to many people. Some people cannot afford to get to New York City and show up at that geographic location.
Yeah.
And many others can't afford to even walk in the door. And what's wonderful about regional theater is not only that it makes the art form accessible to others at a level of excellence, it also has the unique ability to speak to, engage with, and tell stories that are directly related to the community that they're serving.
Yeah.
and participating in that is just a really peerless experience. And so if you have a regional space near you, go.
Speaking of which, and by the way, I'm going to tease this out. We're going to get to Brigadoon, which is the big story. It's the big story. It's the reason we're here. But before we get there, tell us about the regional theater experience they can have of Alexandra Silber in about a minute and a half. Go ahead.
You mean at Drury Lane?
Go for it. Tell us about it.
Excited. My actor self is going to be playing Maxine Headley in the 2022 reimagining of Dial M for Murder, made famous by the Hitchcock film. And if you haven't heard of, wait, I have to tell you a quick story.
Go.
But if you haven't heard of Maxine Headley, it's because in the original play and in the film made famous by Hitchcock, Maxine Headley is Mark Headley. So I am a sapphic American novelist, and fingers crossed that I get to wear Hepburn suits. Like,
Sure.
I'm really campaigning for the suits.
It's gonna be good.
I'm really excited. I love the Chicago theater community. I feel like a sort of like a dual citizen there, and I'm from the Midwest. You know, I grew up in Detroit, so going to Chicago was like a huge part of my regional theater going experience growing up. You know, they have some of the best theater work and actors in the world. And it's
All
like
right.
a wonderful community. So come see me. But here's the story.
Yes.
So I went
Drury Lane, that was for you.
Drury Lane Productions. So
Pre-publicity.
and directed by my high school classmate Adam Emervar.
Oh, amazing.
Very
Okay.
excited to reunite with him.
All right.
Alec, my husband, as you very, very adorably said in the intro, my husband and I, Al Silber, me, and my husband, Alec Silver.
Incredible.
Insane. You know, like the post office is enraged and we've confused the tax people. And actually we did start like a family account when we got married. And for some reason it took the bank like a year to get back to us. And we're like, what's going on? And they said, oh, we were just waiting for you to fix the typo. And we're like,
oh my God.
Truly something. So
that is not surprising.
Anyway, so we went out to we have a little theater in New York City called the Paris Theater, and it's so cute. And they play classics. They also play like sort of contemporary art films. And we're not members, but we're on the newsletter, you know. And they were doing this thing this summer called Hitchcock Fest, the original influencer, right? So they did all these Alfred Hitchcock films in 35 millimeter. And I was like, before I even was doing Dial M for Murder, we had tickets to see a couple of them. And then there was a new showing of Dial M for Murder, and we're like, we have to go. So we went. We watched the whole film, and Alex says,
okay, here we go.
Alex says afterwards, he goes, I couldn't find your character.
Oh.
And I went, what do you mean? He goes, well, there was only one woman in it. And I went, and he goes, who do you play? And I said, I play Mark Headley.
Right.
But as Maxine, he goes, oh, and it was like this huge gasp. And I was like, oh, wow. But it was the cutest.
Yeah.
There's just something about Alec.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't need to tell you, I'm telling our listeners,
Sure.
our viewers.
Sure.
Alec is so pure. Would you agree? There's
right.
something, and it's so sweet. Another thing that Alec does, just like Alec also doesn't really do musicals. And one of my favorites was one time we were working on lines for The Music Man. And we're doing lines, and we're doing the bridge scene, we're just before she sings Till There Was You. And we're going through these things, and we're doing lines, and he goes, wow, this next section. And I was like, what?
Oh.
And he goes, she's coming in a little hot with the all caps. What does she scream this next bit? And I was like,
oh God, no. Here we go.
Anyway, I figured I had to tell that story on Does It Sing? Because those, of course, are the lyrics.
So yeah, she is coming in hot, because like when you can't keep it cool anymore, you sing.
Gotta sing. You gotta sing. I just dropped a drink, but I didn't spill anything.
You didn't spill anything.
I didn't spill anything.
You're fine.
But yeah, I am gonna do that, and it's been a really wonderful, abundant year.
Yeah.
And as you know, as my friend too.
I do. It's been a good year to be outside.
And I've been but I was a little burnt out. So I was a little bit like, I wonder what the next chapter is gonna be for me. And everything that is coming is not only something that creatively excites me and feels like expansion, but it also feels good in my heart and soul. And I think that's one of the things that I've started to ask myself in this stage of my life. I just turned 42. I feel like I'm going, not only what do I want to do and what do I want to say, important questions, what do I want to achieve? Important questions. I think by the time you get to midlife, you start to ask yourself things too, like, how do I want to feel while I'm doing it?
Yeah.
And everything thus far is, just operating in a place of this just feels good.
Well, it should.
Thanks.
I mean, not that there's any, I don't want to shit all over you,
Well, you can.
but things are good. It's a good time to be out
It's a
still.
good time. It's a good time.
And I'm gonna get back to another couple of subjects, but I wanna launch in. So listener,
Hello.
you're not the listener.
Well, I was saying hello to them too.
Oh, you are. Great. So listener, you are privileged today to be hearing the recounting of the woman who's bringing Brigadoon back to life after 1,000 years in the mist.
Not quite, but
No, it's one of those storied musical catalog things where the songs are loved and beloved, and the book is forever the sticking point for a successful revival.
mhm.
And I don't want to talk about it more than you're going to talk about it because you're really the expert on the inside of it. But as I said in the introduction, Alexandra is the new book writer, has written the new book for Brigadoon, and it's coming to the Pasadena Playhouse in the spring of next year, in its first reincarnation. And that's exciting for the legacy of this particular musical and this particular tune stack, this beloved tune stack, finding its new life. And it's also the very important thing to know about this is that this is approved by this estate of Alan Jay Lerner, who wrote the original book. This book, no one's accomplished this yet until now, has been approved for licensing for production on any level by the Alan Jay Lerner Estate. So that's being said, congratulations, first of all.
Thank you so much. I feel so honored and humbled to participate in the legacy, to just be a link in the legacy. And interestingly, I will say, I do think that being an acting writer and a writing actor has helped me energetically enter into that relationship with a good attitude. I think it's really interesting. One thing I like to say when people ask, I wonder if you feel this way too, but when people ask, like, what is the difference? Like, what are the differences creatively, experientially of performing and writing? And of course, it depends on what you're writing, because I've written, novels / memoirs, and writing for the theater is very different. But I will say this, that like theater as an art form, and everybody that participates in theater as an art form, goes into it with the knowledge that theater at its essence was created to be, it is not theater if it is not created and consumed socially, right? You have to go out into the world and engage with it, and the nature of it is that you make it together and you consume it together. And obviously there are art forms that are pushing the boundaries of that, but essentially. And that writing at its core is an art form that is created and consumed in solitude. And I think that those relationships are to the art forms are really important. I think sometimes writers that come from other disciplines and enter into theater writing, as distinct from film writing, and enter into theater writing, are not quite aware of just how collaborative the entire process needs to be in order to be theater, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't feel the need, if you will, to like put my spin on it or make it my Brigadoon. I felt, not to sound woo about it, but I felt called to take one Al's hand, took another Al's hand, to take
Right.
Alan Jay Lerner's hand,
Yeah, ironically.
and through his beautiful original idea, escort this story and central message of love and loss and sacrifice and identity, and bring it into a 21st century sensibility that he never grew to know.
Yes.
And that it's an honor to do this in partnership with his spirit and legacy, and to honor his words, rather than thinking about this as like my thing, right? It's our thing. And the most important thing is not my work or anyone's individual work. It's always about what is the best thing for the work of art itself. How may I serve? And the question is always, how may I serve the piece? And that's how I feel as a writer and as an actor. It is, how may I serve the piece? But I always like to think of the service I play as an actor slightly differently, which is, of course, we're here to serve the audience. Of course, we're here to serve the creatives. Of course, we're here to serve our scene partners and our collaborators. But there's only one person that cannot speak or breathe or sing without me, and that's my character. They have no voice in the room if I don't speak up for them. And so by serving the character, I serve all those other things. It's just a different responsibility as a writer. And it's so collaborative, and it's a when it's good, there is nothing better.
I want to follow up on the ethos of your approach, which was, it's not about me, it's not about my version of it, it's not my take on it. It's not, I don't need it to be like Alexandra Silver's voice of this. It's like I'm serving the story, I'm serving this piece. And I want to ask you on a pragmatic level, because I relate to that in terms of my work on Motown, which really was about, I was like the 7th or 8th writer that got brought in.
Sure.
And I was the last one. And the reason I was the last one was because I very similarly said, this is not my Motown. This is not like my version. Like, it's not about me as the writer. It's going to be about you, Barry, and your legacy and your story. How can I help you tell your story? And that's why I was not fired. That's why I was the one who made it to the finish line.
I completely agree with that, and also just want to like concur. I have worked with and collaborated with you on projects and feel that you embody that utterly. There's just a trust that comes from people where, I think the sort of like philosophical idea of the ego is that is not here, right? To understand that like we're all gonna have bad ideas and we're all gonna mess up, and it really should be about like the best idea that serves the story should prevail, and we should all support that, but not be afraid to mess up and off. Bad ideas are still ideas. I like to say that. But I think it really is just about getting out of the way so that we can serve the work.
And of course, this is a podcast for writers about things that are interesting to writers, especially musical theater.
Totally.
And so on a pragmatic, practical level, did you find, and I'm going to ask you like the basic question, which is, well, how did this happen? How did it happen? And I want our listener to like, understand what the process was.
Sure.
And what part of the process was your approach being in service of the piece, a part of what ultimately had the Lerner Estate sign off their approval on what you'd done or were going to do?
So yes, great. I'm not trying to be like shady, but there's a part of me that doesn't also like wants to make sure I'm not speaking for them,
Sure.
How did this come to be?
How did it happen?
Okay.
How did Alexandra Silber
end up rewriting Brigadoon? Okay. So
Girl from Detroit.
Interestingly, originally from LA. So there's going to be something, I was born there. So there's going to be a part of going to Pasadena that will feel a little like a homecoming, which will be great.
Trained at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, which did hurt.
I did. And I currently sit on their international advisory board too, so I'm very involved in Scottish culture. Are you on a board, David?
Am I what?
Are you on a board? Or do you belong to any board?
I'd love to be on a board. Someone put me on a board.
I'm to say, I love my IAB board. I love my international advisory board, but don't join a board because I will just say like, there's a lot of 7 a.m. Zoom meetings, which are just not
sure. You don't want to have that. I'm up anyway, so I might as well be on a Zoom.
No, I think that's the vibe. And for me, it's just a lot of retired genius men and me on this board. And I do love going out. Like sometimes we'll meet in New York or we'll meet in London or we'll meet in Glasgow and we'll go to dinner. And I feel like Marilyn Monroe in the Diamonds Are Girls Best Friend.
Sure.
Because it's just like me and all these. It's just great.
Yeah.
But
do you wear the blonde wig and everything?
No, I do not.
Oh, all right. Try that.
I absolutely.
won't
receive the attention.
I get that.
Anyway, okay.
So one day the phone rings, and if this is the Alan Jay Lerner Estate, we've heard a lot about you. Will you write Brigadoon?
Okay, so I will simply say that there's a couple of things that have always made me really love this piece. Let me just start with that.
Oh,
okay,
sure.
so like going way back. So obviously I have always loved musical theater, and like so many people that have a passionate love for it, felt that it helped me, I don't know, name and express emotions that I did not have language and tangibility for. I think this is something that very early on captivates people, which is why they fall in love with it, right? They're like, I would never have been able to name this emotion or this experience, but this lyric, this line, this piece of music, this piece of choreography did it for me. This is why we have art, right? To see our lives reflected back at us in ways that we feel limited. And I definitely experienced that with musicals. And there was something about Brigadoon that always really captivated me. And I don't think I fully understood why. I now see that there were a couple of things, there were a couple of themes. It revealed itself to me that as you mentioned about my memoir about grief, I did lose my dad when I was 18 to cancer, but it was to a cancer he'd had for quite a while. He had been sick for about 11 years. And so much of my literal childhood and youth it wasn't almost about like he died and then grief began. It was a decade and change of worry and confusion and a child without a place to discuss these huge questions and what does exist and what does it mean to lose. And so I think for me, it was always about engaging with art, particularly reading, that helped me process those ideas. Reading and processing those emotions was how the writer in me kind of came to be. And theater was about emotional embodiment and enactment and like literal processing of those feelings. I think I realized that what activated me about the story Brigadoon has something to do with grief and loss, and has something to do with the eternal power of love. And when my father did die, this is actually a story that is in White Hot Grief Parade. I had gone to high school at Interlochen Arts Academy, and we had done a production of The Miracle Worker, which to this day is still like one of the best performances and plays and productions I've ever been a part of, even though I was 16. Not much younger than the real Annie Sullivan.
There you go.
The actress who played Helen Keller, who now lives in Sweden and is, now lives in Norway, and is changing the world by restoring dead and dying languages.
Yeah.
Hallie DeCorn, she was working in Paris, really beginning her linguistic career. And so she missed the funeral and she missed the gathering together of community around this loss of my dad. And she wrote me this very powerful letter that still to this day, that I framed the letter and it's in the foyer, the entrance of my home. And it's because it has a central idea in it that I do think is related to Brigadoon. She said, I am sitting here in Paris, and my mother, who loves me, is in Traverse City, Michigan. And I can point to Traverse City, Michigan on a map and go, that's where my mother is. And I feel her love from there, and I send my love to her toward there. And this is an 18-year-old freshman in college. She said, I just don't know that death changes that exercise, even though we lack a map. And I have discovered that to be absolutely true. And with Brigadoon, for those of you who don't know Brigadoon, it is a beautiful fantasy love story, the central idea of which was originated by Alan Jay Lerner. So not only the line by line, but the story idea in itself was his, of a community in Scotland, a town in Scotland, that in an effort to preserve itself from invasion and the loss of their identity and culture, prayed for a miracle. And the miracle settled over the town like a beautiful mist. And the deal that they made was every night when the town of Brigadoon went to sleep, they would sleep. And when they woke up in the morning, 100 years would have passed by in the outside world, but everything would remain exactly the same to them, and that this would protect them from the outside world. And of course, there's all these, internal magical mechanisms, like no one can ever leave Brigadoon. If someone wants to move to Brigadoon, they sign this like contract of having to stay as well. And there's something about a disappearing, reappearing place where someone falls in love, because at the center of this conflict, of course, is our protagonist, Tommy Albright from New York City, and Fiona McLaren of Brigadoon. They fall in love, but how can they be together? The only way they can be together is if Tommy sacrifices everything from his existing high-powered, glittering life in New York City and sacrifices it all to be with her for love in Brigadoon. And the idea that he loves someone so much that is still alive and still out there, but is nowhere to be found on the map, felt like something I really resonated with. And then of course my literal relationship with Scotland, having done my entire undergrad there and continuing to serve on their board and, contributing to the festival like I'm going to do in 10 minutes. It's such an unbelievably unique place that is resilient, unsentimental, indefatigable, inextinguishable. They have their own language, music, poetry, culture, food, way of life, and they have every right, as every Indigenous community does, to be themselves and allow themselves to thrive. And I wanted to really put the focus on that rather than on fear or isolationism. I wanted to emphasize the cultural right to celebrate who they truly are. And through all of that, I just knew how to bring it and escort it in to the 21st century. And without getting too deeply into the mechanisms, because I don't want to tell any tales out of school by accident.
Okay.
I will say this, that I composed a pitch of some central ideas. The families, and I say families, I mean the Lerner family, of which there are, Alan Jay Lerner was married 8 times. And there are, I believe, 4 children and 2 living wives, one of whom was his widow. And the president of the Lowe Foundation, Emily Altman, who is a lawyer who oversees the Lowe estate. I presented these pitches. They said, write a draft. I wrote a first draft. They had some notes. I wrote a second draft. And then we had a sort of more official meeting. But I think the most important thing was I never attempted to do any of this without their knowledge, without their collaboration. And the most important thing I was always emphasizing was that I loved this, and all I wanted to do was honor the ancestors.
So this was generated by you,
Uh-huh.
which is super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
You had a passion for this project for all these reasons.
Yeah.
You wanted to. So at this point, I'm assuming you are Alexandra Silber. You're the Broadway actress. You've performed at BBC proms, and you now have published 2 books.
Yeah.
A memoir and a novel.
Mm-hmm.
So how, just on a nuts and bolts level,
Please.
can you talk about from that position?
Yeah.
Is generated by you.
Yeah.
Who do you go to get to the Lerner Estate?
So I'm very lucky to have a really passionate, energized manager.
Yes, you
who I will just say, to everyone watching / listening out there, having the right representation is like having the right spouse. It's almost, I think I can't believe it was somebody like Warren Buffett said that the most important decision you will make will be the choice of spouse, because whether you wake up and go, yay, or whether you wake up and go, ugh, to turn over on the pillow and see somebody that you are happy to face it with is paramount to not what happens to you, but to the partner with whom you face what happens to you. And they help you, decide to respond differently to life's ups and downs. I will say I do feel like a manager, anybody that represents you, it could be an agent or a lawyer.
That's a really
or whatever,
great piece of advice.
it's why I often say to creatives, and I mean this across the spectrum of performers, writers, directors, etc. It's just so important that that person understands the artistic creature you are, right? And knows not to ostensibly, I don't know, just keep you booked, or just want you working to collect the percentage, or if you have somebody that deeply understands what you're trying to contribute big picture, if you share values, if they see things in you you didn't see in yourself, you will have an expansive career. Like I said, in the same way that a spouse will be like, let's do this trip you would never do alone, right? It changes your life experience.
That's great.
Right? So I will just say I have this wonderful manager, and he represents incredible people across the creative arts, from John Cullum, legendary Broadway actor, to Jonathan Tunick, probably the most legendary Broadway musical arranger and sometimes right-hand man, still alive.
But he represented you primarily as an actor.
Yes.
But then he also obviously, he had a multidisciplinary enough kind of reach where he was also representing your writing.
Yeah. And I think he'd just been in the business long enough to, whenever I brought him an idea, he never said, oh, well, you're nobody, or, oh, well, I don't know, that's not how it's done. He just the way I go, I don't know, the worst they can say is go to hell.
Just a side question. So when you went to him and you said, I have a friend who asked me to direct a musical of his, what did your manager say to that?
He said, sounds great. And I was like, no, come on, I don't know what I think just what I was going to say is, instead of him going, oh, we don't do things that way, or that's not how things are done, or who are you, you're a nobody, he always says, let's give it a try.
Yeah.
And
great. Well, that's huge.
That should be a tattoo. That should be a billboard, because why not give it a try, right? I mean, if you're going to fail, you might as well fail honestly and spectacularly, and at least move forward with the lived knowledge that you really went for it. And I know that if I'm knocking on wood here, if I'm lucky enough to leave this world at a ripe old age, which I hope to be, I fought hard to be, if I'm lucky enough to do that, I do want to look in the mirror and know I lived bravely, and I really went for it, and I really tried things, even if I sometimes failed spectacularly, that those failures were honest. And
but let me know when those failures happen.
Stop. I think that's part of it. So I brought it to him, and he goes, oh, I know several of these people. And
okay.
And actually what was sort of interesting too is, as a performer, of course, some of these people did have a passing knowledge of me. They hadn't put two and two together.
Right.
Like, I had played Eliza Doolittle. I played Guinevere in Camelot. They had come to see me and things. And Emily Altman, also, I'd met her years ago because she is the daughter of legendary theater lawyer Floria Lasky.
Oh, wow.
And so Floria was Jerome Robbins' lawyer. And I met...
There's a street named after them.
Exactly.
In Beverly Hills.
Just phenomenal family, as well as the Altmans, of course, also very, very famous entertainment contributors. And anyway, so I had met Floria Lasky and Emily Altman when they came to London to see me in Fiddler when I did it in the West End. So we just, we'd had all these they're like, oh yes, this girl, right?
Right.
And they're gonna read a script. It might maybe takes 3 hours. They could absolutely hate it, and they move right along.
Yeah.
Or this is a piece that I know they've had trouble getting licensed and produced. It has not been on Broadway since 1981. There hasn't been a significant regional professional production of it since 2014, and it is often about just the creakiness of the book and not quite knowing what to do with it. And I knew what to do. And having nothing to do with the central idea really, or the lyrics, it was just, sort of augmenting some of the ideas to bring them, to make them a little richer, make them a little fuller throw attention you put light in the right direction and remove some of the stuff that wasn't serving us anymore. And the difference between 1947 when it premiered and 2025 is massive in a lot of cultural ways.
Yeah.
And the adaptation should reflect that. And I just felt like I knew how to do it. So I think for anybody out there, I think I will always say the place that I always create the best work from is from the place of like a little inner gremlin that is like a little naughty child that goes, I just want to see what I can get away with,
Yeah.
Not in a bad, nefarious,
way.
exploitative way,
Right.
but almost like a little Artful Dodger character inside my head, that's like, I just want to see what would happen. Like, I want to see if I could make $200. I want to see what would happen if I finished this novel. I want to see what would happen if I took up painting.
Right.
I just want to see, I just want to see, I just want to see. From that place, you will always engage with the art from that childlike wonder.
Yeah.
And you are disconnected from particular outcome, and it leaves you open to alternative outcomes you might never have considered. And little Al would never, ever, ever have known to dream to contribute to the art form in this way. I only knew about performing, which is very true of young people. There's no like amateur producing after school program.
There's no bookwriter program literally anywhere.
No, and I think that is a shame.
Yeah, there's no lyric writing program, by the way, really either, except for the one
you to do it.
Well, that's not. I am doing it. I'm online. Yeah, I'm kind of it. No, there's me, Marcy Heisler.
But it's important, and it is a craft, and it is an art, and everything. As to quote you back to you, those things should be artful. But how do we know how to make them artful if they're not handed down?
Yeah.
And taught. And anyway, I just when you say I just want to see, you're not only saying it to the art form and to the business, you're saying it to yourself.
Yeah. I want to just kind of jump in here and just reveal that I have read the book, the new Alexandra Silber book for Brigadoon. And
one of the few.
I'm honored to have read it. I hope that's okay that I say that I've read it, but that's it. I've read it.
You literally have the insider intel.
I do.
Yeah.
And it's really quite astonishing as the achievement of it. And I don't say that lightly. And I also think aside from the perspectives on it, the emotional resonance of it, the psychological truth of it, and the absolutely, delicious dialogue that is, entirely appropriate, but also somehow entirely fresh and new and like nothing we've heard before, but also somehow also inevitably what we've always wanted to hear before. I don't know that I can articulate adequately what an achievement it is, because Brigadoon is it holds such a particular place in the musical theater canon. There's nothing else like it. It singularly has sustained its relevance in the genre, in spite of the fact that it has been unrevivable as a musical. If you really think about, there are a lot of shows that fell away that people don't think about anymore, or a lot of shows like, Dewberry Was a Lady had some great Cole Porter songs. No one's really ever talking about Dewberry Was a Lady, or doing the parody called Schmooberry Was a Schmake. But they're doing Schmigadoon. Somehow that made its way.
Yes.
A combination of, I think, two things, and you can see what you think about this theory. But the one is the central idea of a town fading into the mist for 100 years and coming back is such a powerful, evocative idea.
Yeah.
And the second thing is the score, this indestructible set of songs.
Yeah.
And this predates. I mean, I'm old. And this predates me, this show, by 15 years. And I've never seen a live production of this show because there's really never been one available. When it came back in 1981, for the literal minute the day it came back in 1981, yeah. I was in Cincinnati at Conservatoire, still thinking I was going to be a musical theater performer. And so to have accomplished this this revival is it's a big deal.
Thank you.
Um, and so the how did it happen of it all, I think, is really it's interesting that you did not wait for permission. You you had you had a fire in you to from your experiences from having been to Scotland and and just from being exposed to this piece and what it had to say to you personally, and then you had set yourself up for success by aligning yourself with the right people who would get you to the right place, and then you sat down.
Mhm.
Now, and just to get back into the nuts and bolts of
Sure,
it,
let's do it. I'm excited. It's the first time I've ever really talked about it.
you sat down, and now at the point at which you had brought your manager into the fold, what did you have on paper?
I had a pitch, and I had, I think, the four major ways I was looking to change what was in the original. And those ideas were the things I wanted permission to run with. And would you like to know what they
I
are?
would love to know
Okay.
what those four things were.
Okay. So some of them are micro and contributing to the larger points, but first and foremost, there were some changes that I needed to make to the way women were written, regarded, addressed, dealt with, and a couple of changes dealt with that. I want to just say, just to be really clear, because I have so much respect for the original, that there's nothing about the original that's misogynistic, right? It's not about hating women. It's just deeply locked inside our the 1947 sensibilities and the sensibilities of the 18th century.
Right.
And it just doesn't necessarily first of all reflect ancient Scottish culture. And I just felt I felt we could just do a little bit better. And it was no fault of the creators that they weren't thinking hugely beyond the society in which they were thriving. So I just want to say that.
Yep.
Second is, not second is. So in that way, here's what I did. The first thing I did was I moved the American travelers to modern day. Now, of course, that is also ostensibly what the original script is.
Yeah.
It's set in modern day. It's just that day is 1947.
Right.
So I thought, let's root it in the modern day unapologetically. And what I wanted to achieve from that, I always like to say this when I talk about classics, including all the Greek things I've written, is I don't want it to feel like it takes place now, and I don't want it to feel like it takes place then. I want it to feel like it takes place always.
Mission accomplished, by the way. That's
Thank you.
exactly what you take away from this.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
So in that way, I think we have a little flexibility about how we regard some of those ideas. So that's number one.
Yeah.
The American traveling and the contemporary scenes all take place it will be performed in 2026. It will take place then.
Right.
And that, of course, moderately adjusts some of the math that they do when they go back to the 100 years thing. And I even provided the math for people to do when it's performed in 2031 or 2041 or whatever.
Wow. Amazing.
Anyway.
A couple of maths behind me.
And secondly, in terms of the women, I really wanted to reflect a couple of things. Two was that Scotland, in its sort of post-English takeover and the unification of Great Britain, was a much more matriarchal society than the way I think it became post-unification. And I wanted to really I wanted to have present more women of every decade of life that more accurately reflected the roles that they played in society. And two huge changes in terms of the writing itself occurred. The first is, in the original, we have Mr. Lundy, who is sort of the keeper of the town's wisdom. He's a retired school teacher in his 70s, and he is the one who shares with us the miracle of Brigadoon. He marries Jean and Charlie in the big wedding sequence. He's definitely sort of the town elder. And that would absolutely have been a woman.
Right.
And so I changed that very simply to the widow Lundy.
Did
And
Alec go?
yeah, he did.
He did. Okay, good.
Of course he did. To the widow Lundy. And that I just have to say, honestly, it is no mere gender swap, just to be clear.
Yeah.
But just in making that adjustment, so many things about the town kind of asserted themselves with a lot of clarity and order. And I absolutely love that change. And the second and probably the most significant character change is there is a supporting character, the sort of like, if you will, I'm using quotes for your listeners, Ado Annie, Carrie Pepperidge type supporting soubrette character is a character named Meg Brocky. And in the original, she's in her very early 20s. She's a milkmaid, and let's just call her amorous.
Sure.
And she's an amorous lassie.
She's just a gal who can't say no.
Can't say no.
She can't say nay.
She can't say nay. And and she's really just like trying to get a man and trying to get a husband and da 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 da, which I understand. There were lots of cultural reasons for that. But again, I just thought, we can do better. And in an attempt to marry my second important point, which is restoring some of the non-touristy, Americanized conceptual ideas of Scottishness and restoring true Scottishness to this work with some rigor without it feeling academic, right? I wanted for there to really be a presence of the Scots language and authentic Scots music and poetry, and there would be a keeper of the town's culture. And that also used to generally be a woman. So what I did was I transformed Meg Brocky, the 20-something milkmaid, and I've made Meg Brocky a 60-year-old, still very amorous, by the way.
Yep.
Pub owner, the owner of Brocky's Tavern, and she is the keeper of the Scots language. She is the keeper of their poetry and their music and their culture. And there is indeed a Scottish ceilidh band in the corner of her pub. And both of her songs emerge like Scottish folk songs very naturally from the action of everyday life, which is how so much Scottish music participates in their daily lives. They sing while they work. They sing while they play. They sing at weddings. They play folk instruments in celebratory settings. It's just much, much more a part of real everyday life. And I wanted there to be a place where that was reflected, and that should be heralded by a woman, and indeed it is. And I'm really excited about the character of Meg. I think it's one of the shifts I feel the most exhilarated about because
Love it.
As a woman over 40,
yeah,
we as a society do horrible things to women in general. But the thing I think we do to women over 40 is we discard them. And this was not a culture that did that. And I think I wrote a character to honor those very real women, but additionally to honor the actresses that have served as my muses and mentors. I'll name them: Tyne Daly, Beverly Cline, Jessica Hecht, Donna Murphy, Ellen Harvey, Susan Rome, these incredible women who, I'm getting emotional saying it, have no business being invisible, overlooked, or thrown away, and have so much to say. And I wrote this role for them and everyone like them. And I wrote this role for future me. And I feel really excited that a woman of that age will be able to shine so brightly in a role that honors this stage of life.
Can you talk about any resistance that you may have
encountered
in making this change from a young, basically, 20-something?
I do think it makes people uncomfortable. And it's something I think we all need to unpack. And I do think that the Lerners initially were a little nervous about it. And it was one of their things that they voiced. And I think I was able to, I hope, I obviously respectfully, one of the things I will also say is it was an opportunity to say this, and again, always be sharing. Notes are always a gift. Even if they make you crazy, they're always an opportunity to discover something anew, see something anew, or they're an opportunity to re-reflect on something you created and discover that you really, really do believe what you had first created. And this was an instance of that. They're like, I don't know, we like this idea of the pub, but she's so sexual, she's so this and that. Like, maybe you should make her a little younger. And I was able to go, dear everyone on this call, anyone here over 50 years old? Are you done? Are you done falling in love and kissing people and having sex and eating delicious food and having adventures and going on vacation and really being alive? And if the answer is no, I wrote Meg for you. And that was it. That was a deal sealed. And I'm really looking forward to it. And I will say, secret, I don't think I've told you this yet. Maybe I haven't. Maybe
Okay.
there's
Wait, we're breaking news on the
we're breaking news on the podcast.
Okay. Scoop.
Danny Feldman, artistic director of Pasadena Playhouse, great friend of mine too. He has very brilliantly acquired a cafe space next to the theater, and he will be transforming it into Brocky's Tavern.
Oh, that's so cool.
For a before and after the show Scottish tavern experience. So I know. Oh, hi, as they say. And it's going to be absolutely aspirating, as they say. And I'm really excited.
I love this story. I love this story of getting the note about this very central thing to your vision.
Yeah.
That really was in jeopardy, that jeopardized you being able to realize the vision.
Yeah.
And in the moment, because you felt it so deeply, you were able to articulate your defense of your position in such a way that was inclusive.
Yes.
And ultimately, because it was inclusive, effective.
Right. I think that's, by the way, like always the way to discuss the work, right? Is like I'm not defending my piece. I'm defending a much bigger idea that I'm pretty sure you agree with the idea, And I'm not writing this for icky men that are grouchy about older women and want us all to go out to pasture. I'm not writing this for them. And
because they're going to get dragged to the thing anyway.
The other thing I'll say is you put women out to pasture, you put any oppressed group out to pasture, doesn't mean they don't exist.
Well, the other thing, of course, just from a practical standpoint, is really who's buying the tickets.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
It's your Meg Brockies.
That's correct. That is correct. They are the subscribers. So I think that was number one, the way we address women, reasserting some of these roles. And additionally, just finishing that out, I think that then means that we've reassigned a couple of other things. So we've got Widow Lundy in her 70s. We've got Meg Brocky around, hovering around late 50s into her 60s. I've moved our protagonists, Fiona and Tommy, to be hovering closer to 40. And Tommy is definitely 40. Fiona is in her mid to late 30s. And that also deeply changes, I think, the stakes, particularly in the old, now it's like 19th century timeline. And that ostensibly she is, if that indeed is her age and not 24, as it is in the original, she has sacrificed something too, not just the sacrifice of the town. She has potentially sacrificed being taken care of, the ability to have children, a contented domestic life for the principle. She's given it up for the principle of a principled love, that she would rather be on her own facing the world alone than with the wrong person.
Right.
And her age reflects that. And with Tommy, the way that asserts itself for our protagonist, Tommy Albright, is he's bang in the middle of his life, bang in the middle of, you woke up, you have it all, you're halfway to dead. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to just live scared, or are you going to take a chance and go for it? And I think if he's closer to midlife, it just really crystallizes that better. And that then leaves room for us to have a 24-year-old Jean.
Yeah.
And an 18-year-old Maggie Anderson.
Great.
So we've got women who are really operating across the decades, and I think it's a really beautiful spectrum. In terms of Scottishness, I have really brought in a way that I do find accessible, not, I think, overwhelming, or like I said, too academic. Character driven, plot driven, relevant, curiosity sparking. I hope that the little bit of Scots language that is present in the dialogue, particularly with Meg, inspires people to like do a Google deep dive or, buy some Robert Burns or
Yeah.
Douglas Dunn and really learn about this thing that we have really oppressed from a lot of our Western culture. And but I really wanted to restore that. I want the sounds to be authentic. I wanted to also emphasize the the resilience of these people and the work quality of these people, and just if you will, just like scrub a little bit of like the
No,
Hollywood
there's
stuff of
nothing
it.
ornamental or
Yeah,
decorative
exactly.
about this.
Fierce pride,
No, that's very authentic.
incredibly
Very
rooted in
authentic
their
characters.
traditions,
Yeah.
and adding the meaning. And I think it's that, so that was super important to me. And then I think the big change goes back to what I was originally talking about. So again, this I will say, all creatives out there, but you and I have just been talking about, when you're writing, the way to write your way through something is to embody the character with all of that actor training. I do it with novels as well. Like
Yeah.
I'll just sit inside there,
Yeah.
right? So I think I'll just say this. So Tommy Albright has a best friend named Jeff Douglas, and Jeff Douglas in the film was played by Van Johnson. In the made-for-TV version with Robert Goulet, it was played by Peter Falk, right? It's often this like non-singing character,
Right.
comedian who might be able to do a little soft shoe, but a very specific mid 20th century type in musical theater, probably similar actors that would go on to play like Max Detweiler, right? Like a very specific type of light comic relief. But in this particular version, one of the things I was noticing was like, okay, well, I'm not right. I didn't add this. Like, he has a bit of a drinking problem. And
Yeah.
he's a little bit of a philanderer, and he doesn't believe in anything, and he's cynical, and he has this unbelievable sense of humor. But my first question as an actor is, why?
Yeah.
Why is he like that?
Right.
Like, why would he even agree to be on this trip if
Right.
everything sucks so much, right?
Yeah.
So I took that and I started to ask myself a question, and I, forgive me if I get a little emotional, but like, interestingly, not spoilers, but I think you'll find this interesting as a writer too. My writing of After Anatevka and White Hot Grief Parade happened very concurrently, and sort of fascinatingly, I had finished the manuscript of After Anatevka like 2 years before I even booked the Broadway Fiddler. It was just sitting on my computer. But the reason why they were happening concurrently was between, if you will, acts 2 and 3 of After Anatevka, I got horrible writer's block. I could not see how this was going to end. And I would like open the page, and it wasn't even that a blank page was staring back at me. It was just nothingness was devouring my imagination.
Yeah.
And it also felt ominous. There was something about it that felt frightening.
Yeah.
I left it for years because I just didn't really know what that was.
Yeah.
And in that time, I experienced the 10th anniversary of my dad passing away, and it coincided with my Broadway debut. Just a very odd, happy, sad.
Yeah.
And I wrote a post on my blog. I still have a blog, LOL. That's how you know how old she is. And,
wait, can I plug the blog? Go ahead.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's such a like pre-social media crucible of creation. It is just alexandrasilber.blogspot.com. It's probably the place I do my freest writing still. And I owe everything to that blog. I was completely, by the way, speaking of I Just Want to See, I pressed publish on those blogs thinking no one would read them. And I had that like Julie and Julia story where an incredible agent read it, reached out to me. I'll never, ever forget her, Louise Lamont. I owe her everything. And she lives in Edinburgh. I'm going to see her next week. And but yeah, talk about I just want to see. Anyway, so I'm facing this 10th anniversary, and I decided to kind of write a very different kind of post. I was like, I think I'm gonna do a reflective post. How incredible that this like dream come true, kind of referencing back of like making it to the Olympics. I did it, you know?
Yeah.
And this anniversary of colliding. And I mean, I know you know this feeling, and anyone out there who's lost someone they love, I'm sure will completely relate. One would think, and in a person inexperienced with grief, there's an assumption that it's like in the hard moments that you miss them.
Right.
Like, what would my dad say? He would help me, or it's actually much more acutely painful in the joyous moments where they should be there and they're not.
Yeah.
And that was a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
I wrote this piece from my soul, and it went viral. Yeah. It was a really huge surprise, and Louise suggested that I turn it into a piece, and that became White Hot Grief Parade.
Yep.
It poured out of me in like 5 weeks, which is very fast. And when I reached the end of that process, I realized that I had moved my grieving process forward by sharing it. And I immediately knew why I couldn't finish after Netevka. And the ending revealed itself to me perfectly. And I finished it. And it was cathartic and devastating. And I'll just say, going back to Jeff Douglas, when I said, why is he like this? And I knew there could only be one reason why. The only reason why you stop believing in the power of hope and love, and why you want to numb yourself into infinity can only be loss. And I thought, I know. Jeff is a widower. He has just lost his wife, and inspired a little bit by my wonderful friend, Danny Burstein, who had so recently lost the love of his life and of so many of our lives, Rebecca Luker. He and his best friend, George Dvorsky, incidentally, a career Tommy Albright.
Yeah.
They kind of went on the Great Grief Tour of 2021.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's what they're doing. Tommy and Jeff are on the Great Grief Tour of 2026.
Yeah.
And that's why Jeff can't believe in divinity or miracles.
Right.
He didn't get one. That's why he has to drink himself silly. That's why he doesn't believe in love. That's why he's making all these jokes. He's grieving.
Yeah.
And the second that presented itself to me, whether or not the estates allowed it, I had to see it through and go, even if this isn't Brigadoon,
or even
this
if
is something else.
Even
right?
if that backstory never makes it into the dialogue.
Oh, totally. Totally. So the 11 o'clock number really is not a song anymore. I've rearranged some of the songs to serve us a little better.
Yeah.
But the big pinnacle moment is not musical at all. It's a deeply human mea culpa in a New York bar when Tommy has declined to remain with Fiona and Brigadoon, and is at not even rock bottom, is looking up to see the bottom. And Jeff, who has now gotten sober and moved forward a little, says, I gave you bad advice. Grief can destroy you if you let it, or you can do the harder thing, which is to love more, love harder, love with more courage, knowing that by doing so, you are creating an irreplaceable them-shaped space. And that makes you cry. Come back. Come back, even as a dream, come back. And I thought, that's Brigadoon. It's the central idea. When Hallie DeCorn wrote me that letter, there's nowhere to point. And the thing, the difference between Jeff's loss and Tommy's is that's not the deal. That's not the deal with death. We don't get to have them back. But Tommy has a chance to wake Fiona up. And if he doesn't try, then he doesn't deserve her. And so he's like, if you don't take this ticket in a middle seat on Spirit, then you don't deserve her. And they go back, and it's what I hope it also shows is that not only does Tommy sacrifice his life in New York for true love, but Jeff, having just lost his wife, is now agreeing on some level to, for the power of true love, he's agreeing to lose Tommy too.
Yeah.
For everyone's benefit. And I think it really centralizes Jeff, and it makes it a friendship story as well. So I'm excited.
Well, I mean, to me, what this does is it lends so much genuine emotional resonance to, what had been there. And I'm sure, for all of its metaphorical power that it had in 1947, there was not an appetite in commercial theater, in musical commercial theater, for that level of raw emotion. It was just not in the lexicon.
Totally.
So you've really, in that way, this is something that not only were you able to bring, but it was essential. You had to bring it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no point.
Yeah.
So what are the 3 questions on Does It Sing? For a musical, does it sing?
Mm-hmm.
Do I care? And why this show? Why now?
Yeah.
And you've given it all 3. I mean, it certainly sang. You certainly could care, but also you've given us a reason why this show. Why now? Does it have a reason for being now? All right, y'all. So you can tell it's late. That's part 1 of my incredible interview with the amazing, brilliant Alexandra Silber. Part 2 will be next week with some color commentary about Brigadoon preceding that, and then we will get into the real story of what the process was to get from I had this idea, I'm Alexandra Silber, and I got it across the finish line to my first production at the Pasadena Playhouse. It's really it's quite an accomplishment, and you'll want to be here for that bit of the interview. Make sure you subscribe. I want to also say subscribe on YouTube. Go to David Goldsmith Lyrics. Find the Does It Sing podcast there. There's a lot of extras on the video podcast. If you're watching it on Spotify, or if you're watching it especially on YouTube, there's a lot of, every time someone gets mentioned, or there's some unfinished thought or some factoid that goes awry, it's corrected visually, it's clarified visually. So it's really, if you actually listen to part 1, it's actually worth going back and watching. And you'll see a lot of little Easter eggs and special material there that you would not get if you only were listening on your Apple Podcast. Don't want to discourage you from listening on your Apple Podcasts. You do you, but the optimal way to experience Does It Sing is on YouTube at the David Goldsmith Lyrics channel. So go there, subscribe. That way you'll know every time something drops. We're going to drop them once a week. And in the meantime, have a great week. Help me with this sign off. If you can think of what's a good sign off, like the bad version is lyrically yours, and that's terrible. So not that, but something like that. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, y'all.
Does It Sing with David Goldsmith and Friends is a production of Virtual Stage Lab. Virtual Stage Lab was founded by Paul Gordon and David Goldsmith to create film captures of original musicals and plays to democratize how theater gets developed, seen, produced, and licensed for production. If you have a particular song, show, or story idea from a musical that you'd like to have David discuss, break down, and analyze whether or not it sings, please contact our Director of Marketing, Melody Munitz, at virtualstagelab@gmail.com. For more information and our catalog of original projects by David Goldsmith, Jane Eyre's Paul Gordon, Disney and 5 Women at an Airport's John Cavanaugh, and others, go to www.virtualstagelab.com. Main title parody lyrics written and performed by David Goldsmith. End title music by Paul Gordon from the Gordon and Goldsmith musical My Improbable Sisters, starring Jenna Lee Rosen and Tony Award nominee Jasmine Amy Rogers, now available to stream for free on the Virtual Stage Lab page on YouTube. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please remember to like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe to whichever platform you're listening on, especially the David Goldsmith Lyrics page on YouTube. Thank you for listening. Welcome to the community. This has been Does It Sing with David Goldsmith and friends.
David
Doesn't have a friend.
Oh, come on, Mom.